I'm 78 years old and I want to tell you something that the modern world has almost completely forgotten. Plants are not alternative medicine. Plants are the original medicine. Everything else is the alternative. For 50 years, I have watched people hand their health over to a system that treats symptoms instead of causes, that profits from your suffering, and that has quietly erased centuries of botanical knowledge from public consciousness. And for 50 years, I have done something different. I've gone to the plants, and I am still here, sharp, mobile, and free of the pharmaceutical dependency that surrounds most people my age. But I'm not here to tell you about my life. I'm here to tell you about the plants themselves because the plants are the story, what they contain, how they work inside the human body, what modern science has actually confirmed about them even while the mainstream refuses to say it out loud. That's what matters. And once you understand it at the level I'm about to take you to, you'll never look at a garden the same way again. Let's start with ginger, because most people think they already know ginger. They think it's a spice, they think it helps with nausea, and that's true the way it's true that a library is a building. Technically accurate and completely missing the point. The real story of ginger begins with a compound called gingerol, which transforms into shogo when ginger is dried or heated. These aren't just flavoring agents, they are potent modulators of something called the NF-kB pathway, one of the master switches of systemic inflammation in the human body. When that switch stays on too long, which it does in almost every chronic disease you can name, the consequences cascade through every system you have. Ginger reaches into that pathway and turns down the signal, not by blocking it artificially the way a drug does, but by working with the body's own regulatory mechanisms. And here's what most people miss. The anti-inflammatory action of ginger works cumulatively. This isn't a pill you take for acute relief. This is a plant you build a relationship with over months and years, and the body changes in response. The chronic low-grade inflammation that drives arthritis, cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, and even cognitive decline. Ginger addresses all of it from the root. But it goes even deeper than that. Ginger is also a powerful prokinetic, meaning it accelerates gastric emptying and improves gut motility. And if you understand anything about the gut-brain axis, about the enteric nervous system and its role in mood, immunity, and cognitive function, you start to understand why a plant that heals the gut is actually healing something far larger. The gut is not a digestion machine. It is an intelligence center, and ginger has been calibrating that center for thousands of years. Then there is turmeric, and I need you to set aside everything the supplement industry has told you about it, because they've reduced something profound to a capsule and a marketing claim. The curcuminoids in turmeric, curcumin being the most studied, are among the most pleiotropic compounds ever identified in a plant. Pleiotropic means they act on multiple targets simultaneously. Curcumin modulates more than 150 molecular targets in the human body. It influences gene expression. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It is shown in peer-reviewed research to inhibit the aggregation of amyloid beta plaques, the same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. India, where turmeric has been consumed daily for millennia, has one of the lowest rates of Alzheimer's on Earth. That is not a coincidence. That is a 5,000-year clinical trial. But here's the hidden layer that most people never reach. Curcumin's bioavailability is almost negligible when consumed in isolation. The ancients knew this instinctively, which is why turmeric was never eaten alone. It was always combined with black pepper, with fat, with heat. Piperine in black pepper increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. 2,000%. The traditional recipes weren't just culture. They were delivery systems engineered by centuries of empirical observation. Now let's go to garlic, because garlic is one of the most pharmacologically complex foods on this planet, and people treat it like a seasoning. The moment you crush or chop a garlic clove, you trigger an enzymatic reaction between alliin and the enzyme alliinase, producing allicin. That compound is unstable. It transforms rapidly into a cascade of organosulfur compounds, each with distinct biological actions. These compounds have demonstrated broad-spectrum antimicrobial activity against bacteria, viruses, and fungi. They modulate blood pressure through the production of hydrogen sulfide, which relaxes blood vessel walls. They lower LDL oxidation, which is more relevant to cardiovascular risk than total cholesterol ever was. And they potently stimulate natural killer cell activity, the immune system's first responders. But what the research is now beginning to confirm is something older healing traditions understood intuitively. Garlic's most powerful effects happen in the gut microbiome. Aged garlic extract, in particular, acts as a prebiotic, feeding specific beneficial bacterial strains that produce short-chain fatty acids, the compounds that feed the cells lining your colon, regulate immune response, and protect against metabolic disease. Your microbiome is not a side note in human health. It is the terrain. And garlic cultivates that terrain in ways that no pharmaceutical can replicate because pharmaceuticals cannot replace ecological complexity. Elderberry is where I want to slow down and be precise because elderberry has become trendy, and when plants become trendy, the truth about them gets lost in the noise. The dark pigment in elderberries comes from anthocyanins, and those anthocyanins have a specific action against respiratory viruses that is genuinely remarkable. They appear to bind to viral particles and prevent them from attaching to host cell receptors. But the deeper truth is this: elderberry's primary power is not antiviral. It is immunomodulatory. It trains the immune system to respond more intelligently, not more aggressively, more intelligently. There is a difference, and it matters enormously. An overactive immune response is as dangerous as an underactive one. The cytokine storm that makes certain infections fatal is the immune system being too aggressive. Elderberry doesn't just stimulate immunity, it helps regulate its expression, and that nuances everything. Ashwagandha operates in a different category entirely. It is what we call an adaptogen, and that word is used so carelessly now that it has almost lost its meaning. An adaptogen doesn't do one thing. It doesn't raise or lower cortisol. It doesn't sedate or stimulate. What it does is normalize. It works through the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the system that governs your entire stress response, and it helps that axis recalibrate toward homeostasis. With analides, the primary active compounds in ashwagandha, have been shown to reduce cortisol levels in chronically stressed individuals by 30% or more in controlled trials. But the mechanism is not suppression. It is restoration of proper feedback sensitivity in the HPA axis itself. The axis becomes able to hear its own signals again, and when that happens, sleep improves, anxiety recedes, thyroid function often normalizes, and testosterone levels in men frequently rise. Not because ashwagandha is a testosterone booster, but because chronically elevated cortisol suppresses testosterone. When the cortisol dysregulation resolves, the testosterone comes back on its own. Milk thistle is the plant I would give to anyone living in a modern industrial environment, which is everyone reading this. Silymarin, the active complex in milk thistle seeds, does something that very few compounds can do. It actively promotes the regeneration of liver cells, not just protects them, regenerates them. The liver is the body's primary filtration and transformation organ. It processes every pharmaceutical, every pesticide residue, every alcohol molecule, every synthetic hormone from plastics in the water supply, and it takes damage doing that work. Milk thistle accelerates the repair of that damage at the cellular level by stimulating protein synthesis in hepatocytes. It also blocks toxin entry into liver cells by competing for the same receptor sites that many toxins use. And silymarin is a powerful antioxidant that specifically concentrates in liver tissue, which is exactly where oxidative stress tends to be highest in modern people. The seventh plant is one most people have never heard of: holy basil, known in Ayurvedic tradition as tulsi. Not the sweet basil you put on pasta, a different species entirely, Ocimum tenuiflorum, revered in India for over 3,000 years as a sacred healing plant. And the science is beginning to understand why. Holy basil contains eugenol, rosmarinic acid, and a suite of triterpene compounds that together produce effects that are simultaneously anti-inflammatory, adaptogenic, antimicrobial, and neuroprotective. Studies have shown it lowers blood glucose in type 2 diabetics, with an efficacy approaching metformin in some trial populations. It reduces anxiety through modulation of the same neurotransmitter pathways targeted by certain pharmaceutical anxiolytics, but without the dependency or the cognitive blunting. It has demonstrated activity against MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, one of the bacteria that modern medicine is running out of tools to fight. But what strikes me most about holy basil, and what I think points to something deeper about all of these plants, is this: the traditional use of tulsi was never primarily medicinal in the clinical sense. It was grown in the home, it was in the daily tea, it was part of the rhythmic fabric of life. And that is the real secret that the modern world has lost. These plants work best not as interventions, but as relationships. Not taken when you're sick, but woven into the ordinary days when you're well, so that the body is constantly receiving the information it needs to maintain its own intelligence. because that is what plants actually are: information. They are not chemicals that force the body to do things. They are signals that the body knows how to interpret because we co evolved with them over hundreds of thousands of years. Our receptors recognize them, our enzymes know how to process them, our cells respond to them with a sophistication that no synthetic molecule can replicate, because no synthetic molecule carries the ecological history that a plant does. The practical application of all of this is simpler than you might expect. Fresh ginger in hot water every morning, turmeric with black pepper and fat in your cooking daily, garlic, raw or lightly cooked several times a week, elderberry through the seasons when respiratory illness circulates, ashwagandha taken consistently for months, not days, as a root powder or quality extract, milk thistle seed extract, standardized to 70% silymarin, taken regularly for liver support, and holy basil as a daily tea, grown if possible on a windowsill, fresh. Not complicated, not expensive, not dramatic. Just consistent, deepening relationship with the intelligence that the plant kingdom has been offering the human body for longer than civilization has existed. The pills addressed my symptoms. The plants addressed my life. And I'm 78, and the plants won. That is not a coincidence of genetics or luck. It is the result of 50 years of choosing to understand what the body actually needs and trusting that nature, in its 4 billion years of evolutionary refinement, got a great deal right before pharmaceutical companies existed at all. The knowledge was always there, in the roots, in the leaves, in the bark, in the seeds, waiting for whoever was willing to look past the surface and go deep enough to find it. Most people are waiting to get sick before they think about their health. But health is not the absence of disease. Health is a capacity, a living, dynamic capacity that either grows stronger or slowly erodes depending on what you feed it. Every morning cup of ginger tea is a decision. Every pinch of turmeric is a signal. Every clove of garlic is a vote for the terrain over the invader. These choices compound. Over months, they become the body. Over years, they become the life. 50 years ago, I made a choice to trust the plants, to learn them slowly, to observe carefully, to let the relationship deepen over time. And now, at 78, when I watch my peers managing handfuls of prescriptions, managing side effects with more prescriptions, moving through life with less and less vitality, I understand what was actually at stake in that choice. It was never just about avoiding pills. It was about maintaining sovereignty over my own biology. It was about keeping the body's own intelligence online, responsive, and alive. These 7 plants are not magic. They are not a cure. They are teachers. And what they teach, if you give them the time and the attention they deserve, is something no doctor's appointment can give you. The understanding of your own body is a living system that knows how to heal itself when you give it what it recognizes.